right, welcome back. As you've seen from there, Barrister Bode Fadipe is joining me. He's the Chief Executive Officer at Sage Consulting and Communications. Welcome to you, Barrister Fadipe, and thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Good morning.
Good morning. We're looking at electricity tariffs. I guess you would have seen the Vox Pop that we took earlier. Many Nigerians are not happy. And the question I should ask you at this time, this first question, is why the adjustment now? Why is there an adjustment now? When Nigerians are still trying to find their feet?
With
Petrol subsidy removal, which has also exacerbated inflation because transportation and all of that. So why the adjustment now? I understand the issues in the sector, but why is there an adjustment now?
Well, thank you so much. Let me say that as a Nigerian, I feel the pain of fellow Nigerians. I mean, there is no, whether you are rich, whether you are poor, there is no way you won't feel what is going on currently in this country. But I think the simplest way to put it now is to say that this is a child of necessity. If we don't do this now, we are likely to drag the power sector into an irreversible process of collapse. And that will mean a greater burden, that will place a greater burden on the entire country than what we have currently. So what does that mean? Unless you try to increase the liquidity, and I'm happy for something. I'm happy I'm speaking with you especially.
Sorry?
I'm happy I'm speaking with you, Nancy.
Oh, really? Why?
Why? You have been on money line for as long as maybe the age of AIT. And so you understand the monetary policy of this country. You deal with the financial matters of this country. So you understand when Naira was strong. You understand when Naira has come to where it is. And we also, as a mother, you understand what it is to go to the market and find the differential between what you used to buy and what you buy currently. The power sector itself operates within that same economy that has transited from a strong Naira to a weak Naira. Not just that alone, the power sector operates within an economy where gas, which is a major resource for the generation of electricity, has also moved from 2.18 cents, $2.18 to $2.45. All of these impact negatively on the cost of electricity production. So, take for instance, between 2015 and 2019, there was a freeze of electricity. So for about 15 months, we didn't see anything. And NEC has the power to review tariff every 6 months. So you can do it twice in a year. But for 15 months, we didn't see that. And at a point in time within this period, tariff was at a point where what had been recovered was about 90% of the allowable tariff. In other words, the subsidy had dropped considerably to the point that we can say that 90% of it had been recovered. But as a result of economic issues between last year and now, there had been a major shift to the point that the depreciation, or how do I put it now, the subsidy value had moved to about 2,900%. Who is going to bear that cost? So it was a major thing for the regulator, for the operators themselves, to come to the point and say, look, unless we do this adjustment, we are not likely to be able to run this sector again. And we all know that it's a lot cheaper to run the sector, to have electricity from public source than privately generated source.
But the electricity is not public, as it were, because even government is not the majority shareholder, as it were. Even when it did the privatization,
yes, that 40% owned by government is
yes.
golden. So even that 40% in terms of arithmetic value is higher than the 60%.
In terms of contribution, in terms of what they've done to the sector, because the sector has been on subsidy. The federal government has been subsidizing the sector for as long as I can remember.
Exactly, and government is saying, I can no longer carry that burden.
And the question, I understand you because I've spoken power. I can't remember.
It's like preaching to the choir.
Yes, exactly. So the issue is, a lot of people are saying the government is a bit insensitive. At this point, I understand you that, of course, the cost of production of electricity, everything has gone up. But the argument is that everything also has gone up. So if every sector should have that morale to also say, let us increase our price too. The other thing also is, these are two variables that really impact inflation in the country.
Exactly.
Petrol
And electricity.
and electricity.
I agree.
Big component. Perhaps the other component would be importation of goods and all of that, talking about the exchange rate and all of that. So how does this government sell this at this time? Do you understand? Then why is it impacting the 15% of consumers who are 40% of the population?
Yes, yes.
Yesterday, I did a very detailed analysis of this stuff. So go watch the YouTube, our YouTube
will
channel,
try.
in case you didn't see that. So how do you, what's your view?
Now, yes, one side of the community or one side of the country will say, oh, government is insensitive. And you won't be wrong if you say government is insensitive. But again, you want to ask yourself the question, if we say government is insensitive, what about the cost of bearing that burden? Should government go and borrow to finance subsidy? I think that's a question we also need to answer. I admit that looking at it from the superficial level, on top of this, on the surface of it, yes, government seems to be insensitive. But the same government understands the data before it, and it had to take a decision on whether to continue to carry this burden or not to continue to carry the burden. Take, for instance, this is a completely different direction. But by the time we began to have private universities, were the public universities strong enough to carry the population of those who were looking for university admission? What was the most rational thing for government to do at that material time? Was it to continue to say, I want to strengthen the public institutions, or to allow private investors to come in? Government took the right decision of allowing private investors to come into the education sector and allow them to charge as much as they want to charge.
And the rich people go there.
And yes, and well, people, my own children also go to the public university.
Okay, public. I thought you wanted to say, because the rich children go to the private
but at least their need was met. Their need was met. Now, if we do a linear in...
Why? Because public education was also debilitated. So,
well,
that's an issue for another day.
For another day,
yes.
Really. But the point I'm trying to make is that government needed to take a decision concerning electricity. Don't forget the fact that one of the fundamental drivers of privatization was that the liquidity in the sector was a major issue. And the liquidity continues to be a major issue till date. Look at it, for instance. Government says we are owing gas suppliers $1.3 billion, not naira, for gas alone. What government was able to pay was $120 million, not even the fraction on the $1.3 billion. For how, and if you look at what has happened since about December or November last year till date, I think it has been one of the worst periods in the supply of electricity in this country.
No,
all because of the issue of liquidity. We are not able to pay gas suppliers. Generators are not able to get gas to fire their power stations. They are not able to move electricity to transmission. Transmission is not able to move as much as it ought to do to distribution.
The next angle of my question,
yes.
Why 15%
now,
of consumers, which 40%? And also know that even these people, as it were, that can seemingly pay, at the back of every rich suburb, you have poor people, the urban poor, living there, as it were. AIT's office is in perhaps the most elite places, areas in Abuja, Asokoro. Then you have Mitama, every other one follows it. At the back of Asokoro, too, you have a village, where poor people...
I agree.
Yes, so how do you balance that out?
Now, in terms of why the 15%, if anything, they are even more favored, and I'll tell you why. Now, take, for instance, they can run their gen, they can do their solar and all of those alternative sources. But when they compare what they will spend on petrol or diesel, diesel is about how much now? It's about 1,500 or 1,700. When they do a comparative analysis and say, okay, for the amount of one liter of diesel that will correspond to 1 unit of electricity, they will be spending about over 600 naira to purchase.
That is if the electricity is there.
So, which is why...
Sorry to cut you short, but I needed to put that in.
I understand, and,
yes.
I'll make that point.
Yes.
And I'll make that point, which is why we need to put the discos on their toes now. You can't take my money and not give me service. NEC had to downgrade some feeders. All over the country, I think NEC says we have over 3,000 feeders. But some feeders were downgraded because NEC found out that they were not providing service according to the service level commitments.
So why not provide service then ask me to pay for that service? I'll be more comfortable.
Now,
You are not providing for band A minimum of 20 hours electricity per day. You are not providing me 20 hours minimum per day, and you're asking me to, that the tariff will be increased.
Now, it's a chicken and egg conversation. Service first and pay later,
yes,
or pay and get service.
Yeah.
But you know clearly that most of the things that are used in the power sector are also denominated in dollars. So who is going to allow you to take service and pay later? Is it not the same take service and pay later that has brought us to the problem with the gas supplying companies, that they say, okay, no, we can no longer give it to you. We can always sell to those who are ready to pay immediately. So which one is better for us? To allow the power sector to collapse completely and then we start reviving from the beginning, or to say, okay, look, let's go through this stressful period. When Mr. President was inaugurated and he said subsidy was gone, all of us were screaming, and then dollar went almost over the roof. But see the gradual return. We are still hopeful that over a period of time, dollar is likely to crash beyond where it is today, and then we can see the true value of the naira. So for me, I think it's a temporary pain that we are going through, which is a necessary thing to turn the economy back to the direction that we want it, so that we can have that modicum of, that space for peace in this country. I feel very sad that after 10 years of privatization, we are still discussing old issues about the same sector that was privatized. I feel very sad. But this is the only country we have. Americans are not running this country. Britons are not running this country. How can we have a country where some people will go and vandalize, and the money we used in developing that infrastructure will develop that same infrastructure again? And we think we won't come to where we are. It's impossible.
Now, let's take a look at it, the impact of businesses, because I also heard the manufacturers have said that this...
Yes, I know they are complaining.
Yes.
Even labor is complaining.
Yes, everybody's complaining.
Well,
it's going to impact businesses, and if it impacts businesses, of course, cost of production definitely, which would also end the consumer buying, whether those goods or services.
Pass-through cost.
Pass-through cost, yes, that transmission mechanism. So is there a way that the government can help also reduce the burden? Ab initio.
Yes.
President Tinubu announced in July of last year some kind of interventions, palliatives, I don't like that word, but interventions for businesses, 75 billion naira for big businesses. I think how much? Is it 50 billion naira for small businesses? And I haven't really heard about that. And I know, Presidency, you are watching. Please, tell Mr. President, because if you want to say it's a chicken and egg situation, you need to also ameliorate. Manufacturers are crying, we'll buy goods and services higher. If they want to pay, give them light. They will pay, because Nigerians have even said, if I have that light, I will pay. Sometimes it's less expensive than generator.
I agree.
But what can be done to be able to balance that out in terms of businesses?
Now,
I hope you understand what I'm saying.
I think I do. In terms of businesses, now look at the 85%. Government is still carrying their burden. So I think to that extent, you see a situation where if the manufacturers now say, what we are producing is going to be affected. By carrying the burden for the 85%, government is also saying, I am subsidizing you. So that little subsidy space that I've given to you should be able to allow you afford.
There is this remaining subsidy, because government is still paying subsidy on electricity. It's
Exactly.
just that it has reduced.
For 15%.
Yes.
But 85% is still the same old rates.
Where does the manufacturers fall in terms of the band? Because
They
I
fall
know
in
there's a
band
band
A majorly.
band A to E.
Yes, they fall in band A majorly. That's where they fall into. Others are band B, band C, band D, band E. And we are saying that if the discourse...
And the band A, they've not been getting lights now to do, because they spend a lot of money running diesel generators. You want to disagree with me?
I won't disagree completely. Okay. I won't disagree completely, but I know that it's not as bad as they seem to have painted it. I know it's not as bad as that. Yes, we have had that challenge there. But now that this allowance has been given, it is expected that discos will also step up their own performance. If they now are able to pay, if they are able to pay gas suppliers, and gas suppliers are able to move gas to GenCos, and GenCos are able to move electricity to transmission, it's expected that discos, because they now have volumetric advantage of their recovery, you can then be sure that they should invest more and be able to service the manufacturers within their own franchise area. Otherwise, then this whole exercise is useless.
Okay, 2 questions. We have 1 minute to end the segment because I have other interviews to conduct. We've been talking now about discos and the Band A consumers. The thing is that give us the light minimum of 20 hours. How do we ensure that the discos, you know, are accountable, especially to their service level commitment? That's one.
Yes,
then the second question, we just got a question from a viewer. Of course, gas prices are paid in dollars. And he asked, why are they paying for gas in dollars when it's being produced in naira? Very interesting question.
Very, very interesting question.
When it's being produced and we have gas flaring and all of that. I also know that the Minister of Power did mention something like that, I think a few weeks ago, in terms of looking at the modalities. But answer those questions.
Now, let me start from the second one. Gas is in this country, but the equipment with which it is extracted is not produced in this country. The only thing that is in this country is the raw material itself. But what about the items with which you will bring it out of the ground and then refine it and make it usable for those who want to use it for whatever they want to use it for? So that's a fundamental issue. Again, it goes back to the fact that we still need to denominate it in dollars.
Because it's an international commodity, though.
That's another angle to it. And then there is also the politics involved. And those who are in gas business are in gas business. They want to maximize their benefits. Now, coming to the issue of how will the discos be held accountable for this current regime that we have. One, NEC has said that within every day, discos must publish the feeders that they gave lights to for 20 hours and above. Within 2 days, if you don't do that, you must explain to the customers. You must publish on your website. But very importantly, if within 7 days you cannot meet that service level commitment, NEC has said that feeder will be downgraded. That's on the disco side. On the NEC side, NEC is also monitoring through its own technology to make sure, and that was why it was able to downgrade from about 1,000 feeders to about 500 because it knew that they were not able to service the customers at that level. Apart from that, I know that some discos were, in fact, all the discos were sanctioned and they were made to refund over 100 million to customers.
They refund it?
Yes, they were made to refund over. I think as this year, even they had refunded up to 18 million to customers. I know that one very clearly. So in terms of money, but it's also very important for us to say something. Customers themselves must hold the discos accountable. How? You look at what you get on a daily basis. I don't think it's too much. Because unless we hold them accountable, they are not.
Customers complain. Do you want us to now go and protest? Because we've been complaining, even if we buy meters and all of that. So what do you want customers to do?
If you have to protest, protest. What you don't have to do is don't be violent. Writing a letter is a form of protest.
How many letters get answered?
This one will be a different regime.
Okay.
If customers insist on it, they will get a different situation.
Okay, let's see. We'll continue to look at this. Hopefully, we'll do this again because we are going to be looking at the sector. At least I'm giving myself and this power to. Let's look at NEC and let's take a look at how the distribution companies will go about this, at least within now, the next few weeks and the next few months. Thank you very much for coming.